product review and demo. I'm not going to dive crazy deep, but I wanted to give some insight into how this tool can be used. Do I think it's worth it? You know, it's not a cheap piece of gear. Let's start with Boss 505 is an incredibly powerful tabletop looper with seemingly limitless possibilities. The unit is packed with features, and the possibilities open up even more with the addition of other gear, in particular external foot switches. First, let's talk about why the Boss 505, why not other loopers? There are other loopers out there that work great. I almost bought a boomerang for my solo acoustic setup. The answer to the question truly depends on what you want to use a looper for. If you're interested in creating full mixes with drums, bass, percussion, guitar, keys, vocals, and more, in my opinion, it's hard to beat the 505. If you're running a small solo acoustic setup, then a simple one-track looper like the RC1 or many others that are out there, it's probably all you need. The 505 has started up every time for me and worked without issue. It's nice to have the ability to control everything with my hands. You know, I've got right here in front of me the ability to stop and start tracks, overdub, so many different things that I can control right here with my hands. You know, as a guitar player, you think you want foot switches because you're going to be playing, and the foot switches are really helpful, but it's also really nice to be able to just quickly get to things with your hand, because you'll find that when you're playing, there's lots of moments in between strums where you have time to go tap something, and many times that's easier and quicker than using a foot switch. Certainly want the foot switches. I run a Behringer FCB 1010 foot switch to give a lot of control options to my feet. If you're not familiar with the Behringer FCB 1010, it's got 10 different switches that you can set up via MIDI, as well as 2 expression pedals. So that's a lot of assignable controls. Now, I also have 2 other foot switches at my feet as well, the FS6 and the FS7. There are in total 20 assignable foot switch options in the Boss 505. 2 different ports that are direct for 2-channel foot switches. There's also the MIDI option, which gives you up to 16 different assignable switches. And I've used them all, even though the FCB 1010 only has technically 12, 10 foot switches and 2 expression pedals. I still use the other 4 so I can assign various things within the Boss 505 and also a dual purpose to the expression pedals. And it's actually how I control expression elements for my Bluetooth harmonica. It's still very helpful to be able to quickly make changes with the hands, but furthermore, it's a wonderful thing to have the ability to mix at your fingertips right in front of you. This is one of the main reasons I landed on the TC Perform VG for my solo gigs. That's this piece right here. Highly recommend that piece of gear, and I implement this into my solo gigs or with this loop table that I've created. That's a piece that I use all the time. I think it's a great solution for vocals. Gives you kind of the basics of what you need. Implements a harmonizer. You can also control the volume of your guitar input, or in this case, I've got my entire mix running through the Perform VG, so I can control that master volume right here very quickly, very easily, and I can also control the vocal volume there as well. The 505 has 5 tracks. Intelligent utilization of the undo function gives it some of the capability of 10. So here's a couple ways to use the undo feature to enhance arrangements. You can set a track so that it overwrites rather than overdubs. So when a track overwrites, this means that what was previously recorded is erased and replaced by the new recording. This can be used to cycle between 2 different sounds. For example, the hi-hat and the ride. On track 1, I'll quickly record both of those at the beginning of a song, and now the undo feature for track 1 will cycle between the hi-hat and the ride. So I can demo this for you real quick. And my FCB 1010 is starting to go bad. I got to get it replaced. There's 2 of these foot switches are no longer working. But that said, the way that I landed on configuring the foot switches was just to control the tracks themselves. So I have, like I said, 10. 1 is assigned to playing and stopping the track, and 6 is assigned to undo. And I figured this out. This is a little tip for anybody using the Boss 505, but for a while I had play records. There's different settings that you can put it to, but I finally realized that if you just set it to play stop, the first trigger records anyway because there's nothing on the track, and so if you trigger it, it's going to record. And so you can't overdub. Using the foot switches, you can't trigger the overdub if you set it up that way, but you can trigger the track to start recording. So that way I have the ability with my feet to trigger any track to record the first take. The switches that are above 6 through 10 are undo for each track. So for example, if I go like this, if I hit undo, go back to the hi-hat. If I hit undo again, back to the ride. So that way you can set up so that your foot switch with the tap of a foot, you can help give that percussion dynamic shift. Like I said, you gotta set it up in the beginning, or you can just overdub at any point during the song. I think it's pretty useful. There are many different sections where maybe you want the hi-hat in, and it's not that big a deal, especially if you've got other things laid down to go in and tap the ride for 4 measures. You can keep these loops really short. If I'm working with a track set to overdub, this allows me to add and remove an extra layer or instrument. So many times for track 3, let's say let's record a so we got the bass in there. And now I can take the bass out. See here, the bass is out. And I can bring it back in. And that's just with the foot switches. And so that's the beauty of the undo function, is that you take what is somewhat limiting, it is, to have just 5 tracks. You take that and you expand it where you can get instruments that are kind of in the undo section of the track, and so then you can bring them in or out there, and so you could stop the track completely and stop both. And so what's nice about that is you can create these different dynamics. So if you got the drums going, and then you get the guitar and bass going, let's say you get part of the way through the song, maybe towards the bridge or so, sometimes it's nice to have a dynamic shift down, ditch the bass, and just lighten everything up, and you can do that. And then if you want to drop the guitar out as well, you stop track 3 or you stop whatever track that you're using. You can even hit undo while the track is not playing. So let's set this up. Alright, so we're going to do the ride. So we got that set up, right? Now I'm going to stop the ride. I'm going to hit undo. I'm going to bring it back in. So you can see that works that way. You could get rid of the ride, or you could get rid of something else. You can trigger that even while the track is not playing. So this just creates a lot of possibilities for dynamic control of the song. The foot switches make it a lot easier. Another way I've configured my tracks is that track 3 and track 5 cannot play together. I'm going to switch views here. So we're going to go menu, and then we're going to go loop. Loop. And then we're going to go to track 3. Kind of hard to do this and look at it. I'm looking at my computer screen. So if we go over, so one thing is I've got stop mode set for immediate, or I've got start mode is set for immediate, stop mode is set for loop. And why this is really important is if I transition between the 2 tracks, so let's say this is not going to sound good because I'm not. But let's say I hit here to record, and I've got it so it's only going to record once it starts playing an instrument. My voice is not going into my Boss 505 at all. I configured it that I run my voice just through the Perform VG because I just didn't want any live mic going. I want all the sounds that are being recorded in the Boss 505 to be clean, direct sounds that can't start to get this feedback and weird reverbs that occur. So if I hit play, it's going to wait for me, and then I could just go. All right, so we got that. Now, if I hit play on track 5, you see this one starts blinking. Now, it's going to record now. All right, so I didn't do things in timing there, but you could see that one's playing. And now, while that one's playing, if I hit this, you'll see they both start blinking. And that's a cue that this one's going to start playing at the end of the loop. If you didn't have this set for stop mode as the loop, then it wouldn't do that. So you can see it blinks and then switch. The reason why this is so powerful, you can trigger this at any moment that you get a second to think. You know, whenever it's convenient to you in an entire movement, an entire loop duration. These ones are multi. 4, 2, and 1 are all multi. They can play 1, 2, and 4 can play alongside all themselves, or 3 or 5. But just 3 and 5 can't be together. So if I record a verse on track 3, I record a chorus on track 5, I can have these phrases going back and forth, and I can be playing stuff on my guitar, and if I have just a moment of downtime, I can set the trigger either with my hand or with my foot, and it's going to start that at the end. So then I can already be anticipating that change and be playing some live instrument while the transition occurs. And I think this is so important with looping, because the main spots where looping is obviously looping is in those switches from one loop to the other. That's where you can hear the imperfections of the loop. That's where the loop resets. That's where the loop is jolted because it just gets cut. Being able to trigger this earlier allows you to play something on your lead instrument, or just if you just add some rhythm components that are live that mask that switch. And any kind of stiltiness, or however you want to call it, any stiffness in that transition, you can mask it with a live instrument because of that feature. So that's really important. Set loop to stop mode. So let's keep going here. We're going to, here's where you set it to single play mode. So I've got track 3 set to single play mode, and I've got track 5 set to single play mode. And then the other ones I've set to multi. And so you can see if I rotate this here, now it is multi. I'll also just show you what I've got here, so this can give you ideas of what you can do with this device. I run some things into this mixer, so I have independent control there, and also that way I can do a mix on a lot of different instruments here. Currently I just have 2 instruments going in, both my guitar. I've got 2 pickups on my guitar. That way I can run different sounds on my guitar, which I'll demonstrate in a little bit. But I got the mixer. A mixer is nice to use, so you can send more instruments or microphones into the 1/4-inch ports here, but you have 2 mic ports and you have 2 1/4-inch ports for instruments. So I've got the hand sonic, the Roland hand sonic here. This is how I'm getting percussion sounds. I do have a keyboard that gets sounds from the laptop. I've got a guitar that runs, like I said, 2 pickups, one through a Pod Go, which gives me distortion. It's an acoustic guitar, but I've got a pickup that can allow me to do some distortion and pull it off without the typical kind of acoustic feedback that you get. The piano runs into the computer, which is routed to the mixer as well. The vocals are separate, and everything in this looper gets sent through the vocal system and then out to the mains. The reason I do that is that my vocals are the last thing to get put on top of the mix, and they don't go in the Boss 505 for the reason I stated earlier. We have the FCB 1010, we have the FS7 foot switch, FS6 foot switch, the OC5 Octaver, the Pod Go, and underneath is LR Baggs Venue DI that I just use for the acoustic guitar. Also a ABY foot switch. That's how I'm triggering the bass on and off, is using, I've got it routed through the ABY switch. This is what is amazing about this loop system, is you can get all these sounds routed into this device. It's incredibly powerful technology and can be configured so many different ways to suit the particular needs of the user. It's also nice to be able to mix the track volume levels with your hands using the faders right here after you've recorded. This is something that's so nice because sometimes you play a little bit too loud, maybe the drums are popping a little more and you need to redo the mix, but you don't want to stop the loop or stop the song and start over. And so you have the ability to remix those things right here with these faders, which is so nice. I think that's everything I want to say. I'm going to give a quick demo of some of what I'm talking about, and that'll be it for the video. If anybody has any questions about the Boss 505, I'd be happy to answer questions. I've spent quite a bit of time using this device at this point, like several years. There's things that I didn't talk about, like you've got effects here that you can use, and you've got input effects, and you've got track effects. These are nice. You've got this knob here that is to control the expression of those input effects. The input effects just go on whatever you're recording, whatever instruments are coming through. You can set them so that they go on mic 1, mic 2, instrument 1, instrument 2, or on all of them. And then you can control the expression with the knob. Now, I didn't use the effects too much. I think there are some pretty cool ones. I decided I'm going to use the expression pedals down below on my FCB 1010. To control the effects. These knobs I set to do other things. So this knob I set to control the overall volume of all loops. That way I can fade songs out. And then this one I set to control tempo. If a song's a little bit too slow, it feels like it's dragging. If you do slight adjustments, you can kind of get away with it and it doesn't warp the sound too much. If you do more intense adjustments, it sounds weird. All right, let's do a little demo. Once I get the loop going, I'll kind of show some of what's going on here. Recorded that better, but so I just triggered all these with my hands. Got a couple loops going down there. I'll show the guitar electric. Let me get a little more volume on that. So we'll go here. Now we're going to switch to, so we'll do it like this. You and me come from different worlds. You like to laugh at me when I look at other girls. Sometimes you're crazy and you wonder why. Such a baby, the dolphins make me cry. Well, there's nothing I can do. I'm looking for a girl like you. got the, just there, I don't know if you could see it, but I triggered, well, let's look at here. So we've got hi-hat ride already on here. We've got basic drums here. I don't feel like there's a lot more you need to do other than just have the kick snare. And it's just, it gets tough, but sometimes you could do like a, something like that, and you could set that on an overdub for the undo function. But when I did the chorus, when I did the change, I went ahead and recorded on track 5. So I triggered track 5, and that meant this one was going to stop recording, or stop playing rather. It meant this one was going to stop playing, and we were going to start recording track 5. And that's when I did the chorus for the first time, and I got that progression recorded here. And since my vocals do not go into this device, they go into my Perform VG down here, and then out to the mains. No vocals were recorded in the loop, just the guitar. So you can see, I didn't mean to trigger it there, but you'll see. So we got guitar there, comes in a little loud, but it's a nice loop, but no bass. I got electric guitar on track 4. Sometimes I wonder if it'll ever end. You get so mad at me when I go out with my friends. Sometimes you're crazy and you wonder why. Such a baby, yeah, the dolphins make me cry. Well, there's nothing I can do. I only wanna be with you. You can call me. Messed it up. I gotta put the bass trigger in a more easily accessible area. Switch the guitar. You can call me your fool. I only wanna be with you. Alright, so now I got all the tracks set up. So just there, I switched, I double tapped on this. So if you see, if I double tap, we got track 1, 2, 3 going. If I double tap on this one, it blinks yellow. Now it's recording. It's recording. Still recording. It's just gonna loop, but I'm gonna go ahead and trigger it to end. Stops recording, and we switch back over here. So that way, you can be singing, or you can be having the music develop always, and just be recording while the song develops. You can get different pieces recorded, and if you plan it out, if you think about it, or just kind of develop sort of some patterns or strategies to doing it, a lot of songs function similarly, and you can get that sense of a song developing and building, and get all the instruments down without it ever feeling like, okay, we're setting up the loop. But now I got the guitar tone wrong. A master stop there. So that's basically how the looping works. You can implement the keys. I've got a Bluetooth harmonica DM48X, which is a really cool instrument out of Sweden. It ain't cheap, but it's a pretty amazing tool. That's the basic way that it works. And yeah, and then you can just have some fun playing with all these different sounds. I mean, the Pod Go, I recommend it. But if we do, I think it's this. There we go. What a wicked game you play. So these different sounds, and then if you have just the basic, It doesn't need to be a lot, and then just the hi-hat and the ride. And then, like I said, so you can switch that with this. And you can see where it's clear that it's a loop, but when you got a lot of different pieces moving, it becomes pretty hard to distinguish these things as loops. I hope that video was useful to you. If it was, give it a thumbs up, like it, share it, subscribe it. If it's not, if there's ways that you feel like I could improve the video, or things I didn't talk about that you'd like me to talk about, let me know. Be happy to do that. And thanks for watching the video. This is the Boss 505. So the last thing I would say is, I like it. I think it's a great piece of equipment. I've looked at a lot of different looping options. If I were going to go with a solo acoustic looper, or a looper that's not the Boss 505, it would probably be the Boomerang. I think the Boomerang has the same capability of setting up single tracks where you can have tracks that cannot loop together, so you can set up your chorus, verse, and be able to trigger those while you're playing any moment that's convenient to you. The Boomerang can do that. Otherwise, I used to run an RC1. I think Ditto probably would work fine. On my solo acoustic setup, I've got a T-Rex acoustic Soulmate, which has a looper built into it, just a simple thing so you can get a rhythm track down and play leads. I feel like that's kind of all you need for solo acoustic gigs. I think that's about it. Yep, any questions, let me know. Otherwise, peace out. See you guys in the next video.